I just thought of the greatest example to talk about something I've talked about in the past in text. But when I try to describe it, my mind gets all jumbled. But I've come up with a great example. So I invented invisible paint. I don't really want to talk about how it works. I don't really want to talk about how it works right now. It'd be cool if you want to think about how it works, then that'd be great. I'll tell you, it uses nanotechnology. Okay, it uses nanotechnology. So, I don't really find it that serious of an accomplishment. It's not. It's not serious. It's actually really relatively easy. Little pieces, little things. The idea may seem like inflated, but the actual what you're doing is just little pieces, little things like putting Legos together, doing arithmetic. It's just very easy looking at what the direction of things are. So anyhow, and then multiplying it using math instead of the wow effect. And the wow is the effect that I want to talk about in movies. Now, I'm not accusing actors, I'm not even accusing the script writers or the directors of intentionally putting things in there. I'm just talking about a phenomenon that, people may get rewards in the brain for doing one thing or another. They don't always really know like why they're doing it. It just feels like, yeah, we should do this here, right? That's what I'm thinking is going on. So invisible paint is actually relatively easy once you get into nanotechnology and you start looking at scales of how to manage things that need to have specific functions in large quantities, and mathematically how to manage that. But you're doing math, right? Math makes things easy. Math isn't hard. Math is easy. Math is here to make things easy. So, essentially, the when movies, like let's say that we had this in a movie, invisible paint, and invisible paint is like kind of like using the invisible paint is like a climax in the movie. And there's just a crazy inventor, a loopy scientist, and he has his what's it called? It's called a deuter agonist. Deuter agonist, right? It's the person that is basically challenging him all the time, challenging the main character all the time. The main character could be the loopy scientist. The deuteragonist could be his female assistant, right? Or vice versa. I'm not trying to be specific about sex roles. So, basically, and then you have this scene in the movie where we're having a climax of using the invisible paint, and but let's go in reverse. That's what I was thinking. Let's go in reverse. Instead of using the invisible paint, let's look at the idea of the nanotechnology and what we're doing on a nano scale, and doing it on a macro scale, doing it on a larger scale. So, let's say they set up. Basically, they're trying to. I don't know. What would that be? See, I have to give it out. It's not that complicated. It really isn't. So let's say they are trying to. Let's say they're trying to make a planet invisible. Okay, they're trying to make a planet invisible for aliens that are coming to attack, and they were working with invisible paint, and then they talk in the beginning of the movie. They're talking about the idea behind the invisible paint, the nanotechnology, how light's being reflected and passed around, and so they give you like they create this energy there and this concept, and then they take it out to a now the climax of the movie is using it, and basically the deuter antagonist is like, it's just like the nano things, it's working just like we thought. It's amazing, our dream's been realized, and we just made an entire planet invisible. You know, what they're actually doing in the movie is that they're presenting the idea that from this point to this point has a wow effect. Now this may like actually integrate with other people. Well, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time. I think in vectors, and when I have to think a lot, I don't use English in my mind, so it gets like I'm English is my native language. I'm just saying I think in vectors, and so it gets difficult to translate back into English after I've just been like evolving patterns for a while. So basically, from this point to this point over here, they're saying that they're presenting the idea that there's a wow effect, and while it may actually resonate well with their audience, it's also, there are other effects going on within people, and the fact that they're watching a movie and expecting to be entertained, where they're taking it as the construct of reality, that from this point to this point there's a wow effect, and this wow effect is not very efficient in your brain. It doesn't do anything like functional for actually putting things together. And when you're actually putting things together, you actually are losing this. When you're doing it all the time, you're just working with moving parts, and you're working with moving parts all the time. But now people start judging the basis of the reality of them succeeding on this, and then they have these somewhat arbitrary social tiers going on in their head of who has power, what you do to gain power through a network, and what that looks like based on what they know. So their scales are completely off because of movies, right? So from here to here has a wow effect, and not just because of movies, because of a lack of education also, and from a lack of doing things, from a lack of doing STEM work, and doing drugs. This is why their scales are significantly off. And the love of money. See, anything that you have, take to heart. If you love money, this world is going to be scaled differently in your perception based on who has money and who has not. And then this creates feedback loops with everything else going on. You watching movies, ideas about social tiers from your life experiences, and you have something that's really kind of specific to you and how things work. But you're not able to actually put things together is the problem. You're going to notice something possibly that looks like dyslexia when you try to code and try to understand coding, do coding concepts. You could notice that coding could be very hard for you, and so you just don't want to do it because it's so frustrating. And other technical, logical work like that could be difficult for you, and because you have your neural networks are reinforced in areas that are working, that are not in line with logical models, and you want things to be how, whatever makes you feel equilibrium, like you're at home within this corrupt way that your mind is put together. So these are the patterns I'm seeing in movies. Like, they're these very, it's not really, if you don't know what you're looking for, or if you don't have something better already, it's not necessarily easy to spot that these can be weaponized. And I think that there's a possibility that they have been weaponized, because I see them in strategic places. I just don't know that it is people consciously weaponizing them. I think that we have something else going on between something that Jesus calls an enemy came and planted tares. And I don't think that it experiences consciousness, but I think that it's a mathematical system anyway. that is within human neurobiology, but because it's not compatible with our survival, they don't grow together, right? And if this takes over, I think people could actually become unconscious and do bad things. I don't know how far that they'd actually go. It could just be something quick and stupid, like a mass shooting. I think that people doing mass shootings, that there's a possibility that this, I call it a theatrical consciousness. It's not. It's basically everything that is not working in their favor. They just black out, and then they go do a mass shooting. It's just a hypothesis anyway, but it's based on real world experiences. It's based on neuroscience and math. So, I just think we really need to look into that. And I think that the system might be actually growing, like behind us, behind people that are consciously looking out for their lives, and is constantly trying to push in and take over. And so you get like this reward in your brain for doing something a certain way from just a feeling. You don't really know what it's about. It's for it's for the effect of the audience. The audience is going to love this. Okay, so we're going to make a wow effect from here to there. That, but we're actually presenting this idea right now. Right now, they are learning that there's a wow effect from here to there. And that causes inefficiency in your brain putting things in that scope together. So this is, I know, if you got made this far, thanks for staying with me. It's just really like a lot of information I'm trying to fit together really quickly. Like I said, I think in vectors and models, and I'm not using English, so it just gets weird. But I definitely need to increase my vocabulary anyway. I really need to work on that. But anyhow, I was saying thanks for watching, because this is really important, and I know it was hard to get through. Thank you.